you have a choice. You can either be a thermometer or a thermostat. You can be whatever temperature is in the room and be a thermometer, which means if somebody else is angry, you just match their intensity. Someone else is gossiping, you match their intensity. Someone else is in a bad mood, you match their intensity. You just become what the other person is. And that's what a lot of us do. We just become what the other person is. We get in a heated argument, we just start mimicking, right? We start mirroring, right, the other person. Or you can be a thermostat. You can choose to change the temperature. You can choose to change what's going on. You can choose not to fight fire with fire. It's hard to keep a fight going if the other person's not trading blows. It's hard to keep that going if the other person's not fighting back. But here's what happens. We like to keep punching back. And we wonder why we don't get to resolve. We just get to tempers flaring. Now, let me also give you a little caveat. You can also be a bad thermostat. You can be the very person that's trying to disrupt everybody. Like the situation can be calm, but you're coming in, guns blazing, and trying to raise the temperature of the room. And you know what God calls people like that? Not very nice, but watch it. People with understanding control their anger, but a hot-tempered person shows great foolishness. God says you act the fool when you getting all mad, right? Proverbs also says, fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. Solomon also says in his book Ecclesiastes, he says it like this, control your temper, for anger labels you a fool. So when you get all riled up and you get all angry and you get all mad, you look dumb. You look like a fool. You've heard me quote this story enough, this study, if you've been in Bloom long enough, but there's actual scientific studies, psychological studies that show that when you're angry, your IQ drops 30 points. It's why you say the dumbest things and do the dumbest things when you're mad, because you actually dumb, right? In that moment, you dumb, right? And so you do and say dumb things. Couple rules, you get heated. Listen to me. Rule number one, never try to resolve a fight when both parties are heated, okay? Don't do it. It ain't gonna work out in your benefit. And some of y'all want to, right? You know what happens when you both fight and then the spouse goes, you know what? I just need a break right now. I just need a minute. And the other spouse is like, oh no, we dealing with this right now, right? You can't go in there. They just chase you around. Listen to me, you can't fix anything when you got someone spiking burritos, okay? It don't work that way. You ain't fixing nothing. You just making a bigger mess, all right? Ain't gonna help, okay? Secondly, second rule, don't let too much time pass before you deal with it. So yeah, you don't want to handle it in the heat of the moment, but when tempers cool, you need to have a conversation. Maybe you need to have a conversation later that day. Maybe you need to have a conversation the next day. Never go more than 72 hours. Because what happens is you sweep it under the rug to the point where you don't address it, but you accumulate it. If it was big enough to cause a bash, you need to have a conversation about it. Watch what Proverbs says. Better to be patient than powerful. Better to have self-control than conquer a city. Guardrail number one. Guardrail number two. Communicate the information truthfully and accurately. Watch this. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge appealing, but the mouth of a fool belches out foolishness. Here's the problem. We care more about being right than being healed. And because we care more about winning the fight, sometimes we will embellish something that happened. Sometimes we'll exaggerate something that happened. And sometimes we'll just downright lie about what happened. And we will say things that are inappropriate. We'll do that to the person. Sometimes you know what else we'll do? We'll do that in gossip about that person because we want to get as many people on our side as possible. So we embellish, exaggerate, or flat out lie. And you know what God says about someone that does that? Watch this. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who tell the truth. I don't know about you, but I never want God to describe his feelings towards me as he detests what I'm doing, right? Like, that's a big deal. Psalms also says, then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. Proverbs says, truthful words stand the test of time, but lies are soon exposed. The truth will come out. And when the truth comes out, I don't want to be known as the liar. When the truth comes out, I don't want to be known as the exaggerator. I want to make sure what I'm speaking is truthful. Now, here's also the kicker. Sometimes you don't ever deal with the problem. So you sweep it under the rug. You sweep it under the rug. You sweep it under the rug. But guess what? When you're sweeping it under the rug, you're not forgiving and forgetting. What you're doing is you're accumulating animosity. You're accumulating anger and frustration. And one day you just snap on the person. And when you snap on the person, you don't remember exact events of what they did. You just remember your animosity and how you feel towards that person. So your feelings are truthful, but your story's not accurate. And how can somebody fix something they don't know what to fix? How can someone get better in an area that they don't know how to improve because you have not given them accurate information on how to fix it? So you got to be truthful and accurate in your communication of what's going on. Ephesians says it like this: instead, we will speak truth in love. Speak the truth in a loving way, not in a judgmental way, not in a condemning way, in a way that I want us to have a healed situation here. I want our relationship to grow. Growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. If you're new to church, the Bible symbolically describes us as Jesus is the head. We as believers are the body. We're the church. We're the body, which means Jesus leads us, but we're attached. We're united together. We're connected together. It goes on to say, so stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. If you're married with your spouse, you're unified as one. Speak truth so you can heal that relationship. Don't embellish just so you can win the fight. And the same is true in your workplace, you're a team, and in the churches with believers. We are a body. We are spiritual families. Speak the truth accurately and truthfully. Number 3, third guardrail. Remember, God is the ultimate judge. The Lord is watching everywhere, keeping his eyes on both the evil and the good. Here's what happens with a lot of us. We think we get to be the judge and the jury. And some of us think we get to be the executioner. And it ain't your job. That's not your business. You know what your business is? You. Stare at the man in the mirror. That's who you got to deal with. It's God's job to be the judge. It's God's job to handle the discipline. It's God's job to be the jury. And it's God's job to worry about vindication, not yours. Paul says it like this: if it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Which means not everybody wants to live at peace with you, but you're going to do everything in your right to have honor and integrity and to be above reproach. You will fight for peace even if everybody else doesn't. You've got to learn to understand you are not the judge, God is. And here's something you got to get in your spirit. Someone else's sin is never a justification for you to sin. Now, how many times that's what we do, right? Well, they started it. You talked to me that way first. You did this. Yeah, but that's not ever okay. What they did is wrong. It's not okay. But it's also not a justification, give you a free pass to respond however you want. You will be judged for your own sin, not their sin. And you got to learn that. And that's what we do with the world. We think we can violently attack the world because the world is doing something immoral. Duh. They don't know Jesus. Why do you think they're going to act like Jesus? Like, that don't even make no sense. But yet what we do is we justify someone else's sin for our own. Paul says it like this in Romans 14. Watch this. Who are you to condemn someone else's servant? Who do you think you are? Their own master will judge whether they stand or fall. God will judge them, not me. So he goes on to say, and with the Lord's help, they'll stand and receive his approval. So we're hoping God moves in their life. We're praying that God moves in their life. We're going to speak in love and kindness and gentleness and hope the Holy Spirit moves. But we're not coming at this with judgment. So why do you condemn another believer? Why do you look down on another believer? Remember, we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. What's the Bible say? Judge not lest ye be judged. What's the Bible also say? If you can't forgive another person, what makes you think God will forgive you? We got to remember we're going to stand before God based on our behaviors and our mindsets. He goes on to say, yes, each of us will give a personal account to God. So let's stop condemning each other. Decide instead to live in such a way that you'll not cause another believer to stumble and fall. So then let's aim for harmony in the church and try to build each other up. Paul's saying, don't let religious mindsets be a stumbling block that would keep someone from growing and being healed. Which means the way you treat someone can either be a magnet towards Jesus or a repellent away from the church. You could be the representation of Jesus, or you could be a bad example of him. We've got to understand the way we conduct ourselves matters. And we want to be imitators of Christ, not the opposite, okay? Number 4, attack the problem, not the person. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. What gets your attention? What gets your focus? What gets all your energy? Is it the problem or the person? And how many times is it the person? How many times is they did this again? I can't stand the way they are. I'm so mad at them, so frustrated at them, that you're missing the actual problem, the root of the issue. Maybe it's the finances that you keep fighting about. Maybe it's the communication that's not happening. Maybe it's a certain circumstance that keeps rising. Maybe there is some work stress that you got to work through. What is the problem? But if all you do is focus on the person, you'll never get to the solution, and you'll always live in misery to the point where you will dissolve the relationship. And here's what you got to understand. Blaming prevents progress. And that's what happens. We start blaming. You ever watch that Office show, the Office, when they're all got the 3 guns drawn, right? And they're all just kind of working in a circle, right? That's what happens when you blame. Nobody fires, nobody gets away, nothing happens. It's just this constant revolving circle. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. And what happens is no progress happens, just a lot of discord happens. And when you get to this blaming game, you know what you start doing? You start bringing things into your relationship you don't need to be bringing in. You start bringing in trash and garbage, and you start bringing in a lot of poison. Paul says it like this. He says, it's time to get rid of anger, rage, malice, behavior, slander, dirty language. Don't lie to each other. Don't bring that stuff in. Don't bring in this anger and this rage. You know what anger is? Anger is this, I'm gonna get loud and be intimidating because I think if I get loud enough, you'll submit to me. If I can get big enough and I can get loud enough, I'm gonna get you to grovel back to me and I'll win. And we blackmail when we're angry, right? We'll say, if you don't change, the marriage is over. If you don't change, I quit. If you don't change, I'm never talking to you again. Listen to me, blackmailing never leads to reconciliation. At best, blackmailing may give you temporary obligation from that person. They'll stay with you until they can find the best exit plan. That's the best it'll get for you. But that's what we do, we bring it in. You know what else we do? We bring in malice. We want to hurt that person. We want to hurt their reputation. We want to hurt their career. We want to gossip about them so the people they love the most will hurt them. Because we want to destroy them. We want to break them down because we feel like if we can get them into a place of groveling, we'll win. We can dominate it. And then we slander them. We belittle them. And sometimes we do it publicly. Sometimes we do it in our minds, where we just slander them so much we dislike and despise that very person. And how do you reconcile something you despise? It's because we're bringing in and attacking the person, not the problem. So how do you do that practically? Well, it's very simple, but it's very hard. You don't fix it by looking at the person. You fix it by evaluating the conversations. So get alone. Start replaying the fights that you have. And then start asking, what was the trigger? What was the theme of the fight? What was the problem there? Were we fighting about a communication mishap? Were we fighting about finances? Were we fighting because maybe I felt like I was overlooked, or maybe they felt overlooked, or they weren't heard? Guess what happens when you start doing that? You start realizing, okay, if that's how they felt, I can change how I respond next time. I can change how I can move forward. And you may say, well, why would you do that? Because you should value that person. And if you value that person enough, you'll want to do whatever it takes to fix the problem. You're going to have to fight the problem, not the person. Last guardrail, stay teachable. Only a fool despises parents' discipline. Whoever learns from correction is wise. If you can't take feedback, and you can never admit you're wrong, and you can't grow and learn from your mistakes, you'll never grow in life. And you know what? You'll end up being very lonely in life, because nobody wants to have a relationship with a know-it-all that doesn't know anything. And that's what a person is that doesn't receive correction. Because the Bible says the person that cannot receive feedback and correction is the opposite of wise, which means they are foolish. To learn, you must love discipline. It's stupid to hate correction. And when you don't take feedback and you never apologize, you know what you're saying? I'm right, you're wrong. I'm perfect, you're not. I handled everything right, you handled everything wrong. I'm the victim every time, you're the villain every time. You may not physically say that, but that's what you're communicating. And I hate to break it to you, ain't nobody perfect, which means you had some damage to play in that conflict. May not be the level of someone else, but you played some part of it. And you ain't Jesus, and he's the only perfect person ever walked this earth. So we can always learn from everything. We can always grow from everything. And this is something I want you to get in your spirit. Listen to me very clearly. Don't trade away your integrity for justification. And that's what we do. We don't want to let go. We don't want to give in ground. And a lot of your relational hurt, someone else did to you. I get that. They gossiped about you. They mistreated you. They abused you. But don't trade away your integrity by just returning fire and folly back at them. Grow from it. Learn from it. Don't live in it.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you never miss a video or a live stream, and give this a share to one of your friends. And remember, we go live every single Sunday. Till next time, pray God's peace.